I'm going to channel my inner Brian Windhorst here. It's got me thinking about a bunch of things that could just possibly happen.
I already know.
It's got me thinking about what the Jets are doing. The Jets have a young quarterback they drafted very high who has shown himself to be nowhere near ready to play. And they think they have a championship caliber roster. So what do? They go out and they get themselves an aging veteran who might be able to give them 1 or 2 years and a shot at a Super Bowl and maybe mentor the young kid towards being able to play. So what is Jerry Jones perhaps thinking? How about thinking about a Super Bowl winning veteran quarterback who might want to finish his career in his hometown of Dallas, Texas, and mentor a young player in a year or two to being ready to take over the reins? That young player could be Trey Lance. And I'm here to tell you right now, Orlovsky, your buddy Matthew Stafford, I could easily see a world in which a year from today, Dak Prescott is way better off being the quarterback of Tampa or Minnesota or Denver or someplace where they really want him. And your buddy Matthew Stafford is the starting quarterback of his hometown Dallas Cowboys. What do you think of that?
Greeny, it's August 30th.
Yes. Yes. Talk to me.
You're one of a kind, man. You are one of a kind. You are a special person.
His wife is talking about how he doesn't get along with the young players. Don't even know what he's talking. His wife is on podcasts getting him out of L.A.
Yeah, I think it's August 30th. We got a long way to go till we get to that point. Long way to go till we get to that point.
Yeah.
Matthew's a better player. We'll see how healthy he is this year. To my knowledge, he feels really good and is throwing it really well. But it's August 30th. We got to see a long way to go till we get to that point, Greeny.
I understand. I don't mind you not wanting to be on record as suggesting that this is the brilliant idea that it is. But once again, I am that rare genius that will not be fully appreciated until long after my time. Kimberly Martin, what do you think?
I love it. But what I love most is that Dan literally for once isn't saying much. For once.
This is Wednesday Dan.
It is Wednesday Dan, suddenly quiet. I like it. I like this idea.
Matthew Stafford and Clayton Kershaw grew up together in Highland Park, Texas. It's like a 10-minute drive from where the Cowboys practice.
Ryan Fitzpatrick went to Harvard.
Yeah.
Oh, womp womp.
Yeah.
I will say of all your takes, I like this one a lot because it just makes logical sense. Because we go back to the Jerry of it all and how they feel about Dak, and you just don't get. It's like, yeah, we're engaged for a really long time. But when's the wedding date? Do you love me? Do you really love me? Why am I still asking after all these years, Dan? Why am I still asking? Do you love me?
So you're
to your point, Harry.
So you're saying,
yeah,
Dak Prescott to the Rams.
Somewhere. No, not to the Rams. No. That Dak Prescott. If this thing, look. To what Dan is saying is it's August 30th. Maybe the Cowboys wind up having a great year. Maybe Dak has his best year. I hope he does. I love Dak Prescott. I want him to play as well as I think he could, and I want him to receive the money from the Cowboys he deserves and the respect from them that they've never seemed willing to show him. But I'm taking your scenario into account, which is that things don't go any better than they have the last few years. They don't go deep in the playoffs. And now all of a sudden, Dak Prescott winds up somewhere else next year because that $60 million clause in his contract doesn't work. You just said Trey Lance isn't going to be ready to be their quarterback next year. So he's sitting there watching Matthew Stafford lead a championship caliber team to a championship. What do you think of that?
Bring him to Big D.
Right?
If he's healthy.
I mean, come on.
If he's healthy,
What are we talking about here?
Bring him to Big D.
It's the Aaron Rodgers move, exactly.
Bring him to Big D.
It's exactly what it is. Now, again, I am hopeful that Prescott will play great. I hope he does. I hope Dak makes all of this moot, which he easily could by playing great. I'm living in a world where if we are still sitting at the end of this year with the same questions, or more importantly, they are with the same questions, I could see this as a magnificent scenario. Danny, go.
Let's get to week one. Let's get to week one. Let's get to week one and let's see what Dak Prescott does.
Shaking things up today.
This guy has
I don't know what is
takes. Dan
I don't know
has
what
the
has
craziest takes.
No. People think my takes are crazy, but I feel convicted to say them. I feel convicted to say this. Let's get to week one. Y'all got me in 2023 defending Dak Prescott on national television. The person that Cowboys fans think hates the guy. Yeah. I'm sitting here saying, let's get to week. Last year, he played poorly. Up until last year, he was historically great at valuing the football, historically. So let's get to week 1. Let's get to week 2 versus both New York teams that are going to be good challenges for this football team and kind of see where it's going to go. I am not in any way going to entertain the Cowboys not having Dak Prescott and trading for Matthew Stafford as of right now. This is a conversation that potentially could be part of the future, but I want to just see what happens in Dallas and Dak Prescott's performance, because my expectations are this: that Dak plays really good, that this is one of the 3 best defenses in football, that this team goes to the playoffs. And then when they get to the playoffs, let's see if Dak can play to a level, at least in the playoffs, on a consistent basis that we haven't seen.
Dan, let me ask you this really quick, though, before we, get off this topic. If you had a choice between Matthew Stafford and Dak Prescott, who are you taking?
He's taking his boy.
Do I want to drink water to survive?
He loves, again, for those who don't know, Dan played with Stafford forever in Detroit, and
I just think he's a better player.
And they remain that way. Yeah, and Stafford at his best. I mean, we'll see. I don't know. Who knows what he's got left? He's got the arm and all that kind of stuff. But he's one of those guys that'll be able to fling it until he's 60. We just have the permission to show you the parts that they gave us. But you've got to see it. It's extraordinarily well worth your time. And there's Rodgers just being Rodgers on the field, Dan. And it's hard to explain. You and Harry will understand this on a level that I cannot. But I think fans watching this, you just get a sense of what it sounds like when these guys are talking to each other. The difference in hearing Aaron Rodgers talk about stuff like that, when he says, Google me, it just has a different feeling than it does when almost anyone else does. What'd you make of what we just saw there, Danny?
Yeah, alpha males. It's a level up type of impact. And not only are the Jets talented, now they've got confidence and they'll borderline cockiness. They will play with an absolute ego. Greeny reminds me, you've heard me share this story before, that I sat with Matthew Stafford a couple times, and I remember, kind of watching tape with him and him making some throws, and similar to throws like this, but sitting there with Matthew, and I remember being in the film room one time and showing a clip and being like, hey, like why would you attempt this throw? Like, this is stupid. Why would you attempt this throw? And he just looked at me and he said, because I know you can't. And it wasn't trying to be like a jerk. It was just, that's how those guys are wired. And you're kind of getting to a glimpse of seeing like the inner workings of Aaron, and one of the reasons why he's become the Hall of Famer. These guys walk around like they think they're the best player on planet Earth. Every time they walk on the field, and Harry knows this, they think that they are the baddest MFer on the grass. And it's cool to see. We got to experience it basically every day of our lives with some of the guys that we played with. It is going to have a profound impact on that football team, man.
It's a thing of beauty to see, and for the Jets organization to be able to have that at the quarterback position, something they haven't had in a very, very long time. I think it's going to pay dividends for their football team. When you look at their roster, right, you look offensively, you have Aaron Rodgers with that mindset. I would throw Garrett Wilson in there with that mindset. You look on the defensive side of the ball. Remember on Hard Knocks, Quentin Williams telling people, I'm him.
Yes.
I'm that dude. I'm him.
Yes.
And then you see Sauce Gardner and the way he walks around with his swag. It's great to have people on, and I don't think it's cockiness. I think it's confidence.
Yes.
It's confidence. I'm confident in my abilities, that I'm better than you, and there's nothing that you can do that can, put me down in the dirt on this football field. If something doesn't go right, you always feel like it's something that you did wrong, nothing that the opponent has done wrong.
I think the Jets, and a credit to Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh for putting together a young team with talented guys.
Yep.
Jets players like Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, a lot of these guys, they know they are talented individuals. The Jets right now have to learn how to be a talented championship-level team. And that is the difference of adding an Aaron Rodgers. When he's barking at them in practice, I love the juxtaposition, though, the editing of Hard Knocks, where it shows him losing his mind and then coming back and talking to guys individually and saying, this is what I want to do. Hey, Garrett, 17, step into my office real quick. That is what the Jets have needed. Zach Wilson didn't have that vet in the locker room. Well, he had Joe Flacco. But they didn't have a guy like this for Zach to learn from. Now, Aaron Rodgers, Randall Cobb, all these vets that have come in here are raising the standard and showing this is not up to par, and this is what it has to be.
And I'll take it a step further. Their young guys that they brought in, those guys know how to win. They won at the college level.
They don't care anything about same old Jets.
No,
that does not apply to them.
They won at the college level, so that means something too. When you're trying to change the organization and ascend to something, what you want to be, a championship winning team, having those young players that won at the college level coming into your organization, it means something.
Look, the bottom line of it is they now walk into every stadium they play in, regardless of whether Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or Josh Allen or anybody else is on the other side, saying, we've got a guy who's just as good as that. So that makes all the difference in the world. Well, again, we're going to show you everything Hard Knocks, allows us to, because I just think it's fascinating. And just this look behind the...
I think this is kind of what's happening in New York right now is, you know, you bring in a player like Aaron Rodgers, and in many ways you know of the accomplishments, and you hear the rumors of the everyday. And now the Jets, as an organization, are experiencing having a quarterback that is going to refuse to lower his standards to accommodate those around him who won't elevate theirs and or raise theirs. And I remember practicing against the New England Patriots, Greeny. And this was probably in like 2012, 2013. We're practicing in a 2-minute drill with Tom and Julian Edelman. And the 2-minute drill starts. Tom throws the ball to, and this is 100 degrees down in Tampa, throws the ball to Edelman, incomplete. Next play, get to the line of scrimmage, throws the ball to Edelman, 2 or 3 yard gain. And Julian Edelman runs back-to-back like 40, 50-yard sprints, and he's jogging back to the line of scrimmage. And Brady flips out on him. Stop jogging back to the line of scrimmage. And this is during their heyday, and just completely undresses him in front of everybody when it comes to his lack of effort in that moment, in Tom's opinion. This is kind of what it reminds me about. That's how you win championships. That's how you become the absolute best, is you make everybody else raise to your level. And it's cool to kind of allow everyone else to see kind of how the sausage is made, so to speak.
100%. In the meantime, there was one other piece of significant news that indirectly or maybe directly involves the Jets, and you gave it to us a little bit earlier in this program. They open their season a week from Monday night against the Buffalo Bills, and who won't be there?
As expected, Von Miller, their supreme pass rusher, he's going to be on the physically unable to perform list, still start the season, which means he'll miss the first 4 games. And Greeny's Jets will not have to face him. So I think the Jets have a good chance in this game beyond that. But not having to face Von Miller, huge, especially considering the questions surrounding this Jets offensive line.
I think it's huge when you look at Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator, and Dan knows this. When you're talking about protections from an offensive line standpoint, when you have a dynamic, a game record player like Von Miller, you're going to have to chip. You're going to have to bang, right, before guys go out in routes so he doesn't wreck your game plan from an offensive standpoint. Not having Von Miller out there, it's huge for the New York Jets. It's huge for the Buffalo Bills. But Dan mentioned earlier that Gregory Rousseau, Ed Oliver, Leonard Floyd, who they pick up in the offseason, those guys are going to have to step up even that much more. But for the Jets, I think it's more of a positive, because you don't have to deal with the guy that's a walking Hall of Famer, a All-Pro, a Pro Bowler, a 2-time Super Bowl champion, and that was brought over to Buffalo to be disruptive and be a game wrecker and take them to the promised land.
Right.
Well, you don't have to deal with that in week 1. It takes a lot off Nathaniel Hackett's plate when it comes to a protection standpoint and trying to defend a guy like Von Miller.
He was brought there to be what he was in L.A., which was the final piece that put them over the top. And you don't do that in week 1, obviously. We all understand that. And clearly, Dan, the Jets are going to have to win games against good players as the season goes on, and week 1 doesn't decide everything. It might not even really decide anything. But it obviously is a significant factor in that week 1 game that we'll have on ESPN and ABC. Quick final thought, Danny.
Yeah, it's a win for the Jets when it comes to having to face one of the best pass rushers, and certainly elevates like hey, we're at home. It's the 9/11. It's in New York City. It's a division game. Let's start this off the right way. It gives them a certain advantage. And I think for Buffalo, you sit there and go, we just got to try to hang on without Vaughn, because we know why Vaughn is here. That's to play in those meaningful moments really in December and January. So it's not a must win for the Jets, but it elevates their chances to do so.
For a lot of the reasons that RC just talked about, I like how comfortable he's looked at the quarterback position, diversifying the football. The last game, things didn't start off, correctly for them, but he didn't blink an eye. I just like his athleticism inside the pocket, outside the pocket, and he looks like he knows what's going on. This is a guy that's been in this system for 3 years, and it actually looks like it. The ball placement that he has with his wide receivers and tight ends has been phenomenal this preseason as well. So right now, I'm going with Jordan Love also. He has the better team around him. When you look at that defense, and Dan just talked about it, all those guys, 8 first-rounders on defense, the offensive line, and 2 running backs. So I'm going to go with Jordan Love.
He's got a team that was a win away at the end from making the playoffs. The Bears had the worst record in the NFL, so they got a deeper hole to climb out of. What do you think of the comparison, Kmart?
I think this season we may look up and Justin Fields may have a better season statistically, but Jordan Love will have the better season altogether from the standpoint of potentially wins, and is this a team that makes the playoffs? I have the Bears finishing last in that division. I love the upgrades that they've made, particularly DJ Moore. But I think when you look at Jordan Love, I think all these players have said all offseason, you don't know what we have in here. We've seen him. Y'all haven't seen him. And I think what we got to see in the preseason was, okay, maybe the Packers still know something about drafting quarterbacks. Maybe. I think right now, all we've seen is exhibition games, though. So we still haven't seen a regular season. I think if you're in Green Bay, you got to be high on him. But again, very high on Justin Fields.
Me too.
Very high on.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.